Now more Operation Freedom with your host, Dr. Dave Janda, on Southeast Michigan's conservative powerhouse, WAAM Talk 1600. Call Dave now at 822-1600. That's 734-822-1600.
Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our Freedom Bunker here at WAAM Talk 1600. I am honored to have back with me someone I consider a friend. He's an incredibly gifted individual who has developed, along with his company, Evolution, a predictive modeling system that is actually kind of scary. I have conversations with Nick, and sometimes within hours of us speaking on the phone, something that seemed fairly improbable is being said or done happens. And it's because it's scary because he had just warned me several hours before that something was coming down the line. He's also done the same, not just hours, but weeks down the line, months down the line, and in a number of cases, years down the line. Nick Ruiz is a lead system architect of the Evolution 4.0 system, as well as of Evolution Ultra system, and founder of a great company, Evolution Consulting. Nick Ruiz, along with his team of developers, set out several years ago to what many felt to be the impossible, to design a large-scale data mining system that could forecast future geopolitical and global financial events based upon linguistic analysis, in addition to other proprietary methods. In other words, folks, a collective sentiment and intention analysis engine. While many said this would not be possible, the combination of determination, creativity, and an incredibly diverse talent team has proven that is in fact not only possible, but it has happened. For the past 3.5 years, Nick, along with other members of the Evolution development team, have been sharing public information discovered by the Evolution 4.0 system. In addition to providing a valuable level of insight to traders and investors, he has also established an indisputable track record of accuracy. Yeah, incredible accuracy. Scary, incredible accuracy for the Evolution 4.0 system and the Ultra systems. In terms of finance and economics, the Evolution 4.0 system has proven over 96% accurate in forecasting equity and capital market trends, forex trends, as well as movements of precious metals markets. Nick, welcome to Operation Freedom.
Thanks for having me on again, Dave.
Well, it's an honor, Nick. And now, folks, a little disclaimer here. If it was not for my buddy Nick, I would not have the wonderful graphics that I do on my YouTube channel. Nick is the developer as well of the graphics that are on that site that everybody says, my gosh, those are incredible. You surely didn't do that because we know you're such a computer moron, Dave. Who did that? Well, you got to talk to my buddy Nick.
Glad you're enjoying them.
Everybody's enjoying them. See them, Nick, and I thank you for that. So, Nick, this is so foreign, this predictive modeling to people. I want you to start at the base because we get tens of thousands of new listeners around the world based on our internet exposure every week. Educate our listeners on the Evolution 4.0 system, the Evolution Ultra system, and how they can help each and every one of them.
Sure thing. I mean, I've gotten the description of our Ultra system and our 4.0 system down to about a minute at this point, so I'm going to try that. Basically, what we've done is created, I'm going to use the word eavesdropping, but not in a negative kind of spy, NSA kind of context. Really just a broad-range surface data scraping system, okay, that's going to take available content, no darknet, no deep net type stuff, just available surface content from a fine-tuned set of sources, and from that, using algos that are proprietary to our Evolution Ultra and Evolution 4.0 system, can start to get what's called a collective sentiment forecast. And that's what makes what we're doing very different, I suppose, than a lot of what else is out there, okay, is that we're not looking for specific words. We're not even looking for specific key strings. Okay, we're looking for a collective sentiment on a global level, and that's how we can get out ahead of a lot of these forecasts that we made and have been ultimately proven correct on, i.e. Brexit, i.e. the Trump the Trump election win is that we can kind of gauge collective human sentiment vis-a-vis just widely available, publicly available information. It's no hackery or skullduggery going on, so to speak. It's just taking a massive amount of data and crunching it down to what's the intent, what's the collective intent, and how strong is that intent.
And I must say, Nick, while the lamestream fake media was proclaiming Hillary Clinton the winner of the election long before the election, and actually the day of the election, actually as of 5 p.m. the night of the election, the New York Times had her at a 97% certainty that she would win the presidency of the United States.
That went well.
Yeah, sure. It sure did. Now, but you and your team, on the other hand, for weeks, many months before the election, said in no uncertain terms, Donald Trump's going to win the election. And in fact, conversations we had, you had actually pointed out where Trump was going to have surprise wins and how those areas could be targeted for him to win, such as in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Yeah, that's a product of that collective sentiment engine that we use when we try to describe it. I mean, the best analogy, I'm going to sneak this in here real quick. The best analogy that we have as far as what our system can do and how we're able to do that is I give people the analogy of if you walk into a big room, a meeting of some sort, in a vacuum of reality, and you're not quite sure what's going on or what the purpose of the meeting is or really what the topics to be discussed are, you start to use your five senses, and most notably of them, your ears. You start to try to overhear conversations so you can start to get at least an educated statistical inference of what's going on. Now, we do that, obviously, using the entire Internet as the metaphorical room, and we try to make inferences based upon consistencies in data or consistencies in collective intent. And that's how we were able to say, fairly confidently, I was on your show 2 days before the election, and I remember you saying, well, what about the Comey thing? What about, this, that, and the other thing? I go, he's going to win. I've never been more confident in a forecast. And, if you go back and you listen to the show that I was on, I dare say I sound smug. And the only reason I sound smug is because the amount of information, and it's just once you get to know the Ultra program, and you work with it long enough, you get to know it, and it's just a dream to work with. But you start to see that information. We were just so confident in making that forecast because of the information that we were seeing. You know the program well enough. We go, no, Hillary's not going to win. She's going to get not destroyed. And I think I said it's going to be an election. It's not going to be a blowout. But certainly, he's going to win because that collective sentiment in the United States that's just the way it was. And that's how we were able to forecast Brexit and, again, a lot of the Fed decisions and, not so much equity price movements, but, we use some different algos for that. But that's how we've been able to do what we do.
Yeah, and it's actually the level of accuracy is absolutely incredible. So, Nick, and I will never do this, but if I was going to run for political office, or if I was a principal in a business, I actually don't care what size of business. It really doesn't matter. I can't imagine not using your system to help me. It's
not cheating, but it may as well be, is the way we put it. And people have asked me many times, they go, well, what business or what market sector did you build the Ultra program for? And I kind of chuckle a little bit, and I go, you tell me about a business where having advanced knowledge of either known outcomes of known events or perhaps outcomes of yet to be determined events is an advantage, and I'll show you where that's applicable or the system is applicable. And it's the product of something I call speed of information, and it's the product of availability of content. What we do wouldn't work if there wasn't just so much content out there, be that social media, blog posts, and things like that. And just the prevalence of that every day that goes by, that there's more content added to the internet. On a surface level, it's not deep level hackery, as we call it. It's straight up data scraping, and just the more information, it's like any sample set, the more information that's there, the more clear the picture becomes. In some cases you have to know what you're looking for, and in other cases we do what's called, which impresses me. We built the program, and it sounds probably horribly arrogant to say, but the open-ended scans where it can discover linguistic trends that we didn't even know we were looking for. That's really kind of the crowning achievement. I mean, if you already know what you're looking for, that's one thing. But where you can kind of just broad range open search and just get some, get a trend that you're like, oh, wow, I would have never thought of that. That's really where, we're, I guess, most proud of what we've developed here.
So, Nick, and you explained this very well because we've had this discussion before. There's something called artificial intelligence, right?
Correct.
Where a computer modeling system. So as you explained it to me, and you can explain it to folks better than I can, but if I remember correctly, if the computer modeling system knows that a red ball goes in a red box and a blue ball goes in a blue box, but if you put a yellow ball there, that's as far as artificial intelligence will go. I don't know what to do, right?
Correct. The difference between artificial intelligence and deep learning, and dare I say, digital sentience, okay, which is a phrase that sends chills up and down some people's spine, is exactly what I said. If you put, if you can imagine an auto assembly robot or a little grabber arm robot, and it's programmed, put the red ball in the red cup, the blue ball in the blue cup. Then you put a yellow ball in front of it. The artificial intelligence, as it is conventionally described, will not react to that. It will be outside its scope of operation. It will be outside of its scope of comprehension. Okay? Whereas deep learning or, again, dare I say, artificial sentience, it will create, and this is, again, an analogy in a vacuum of reality, but it will create the yellow cup to put the yellow ball in. In other words, it would be aware of what's needed to rectify whatever problem is in front of it. So that's really, you want to talk about perhaps the greatest variable in modern human history is the continued development, the continued proliferation of artificial intelligence, deep learning, and ultimately digital sentience.
And is artificial sentience possible today?
I'm going to say it's beyond possible. Okay, I'm going to say at this point it may or may not have already happened.
So that brings us to something that you discuss in many of your writings and in a number of your interviews you've given. You describe something called the new management team. Donald Trump is a part of that, correct?
Correct.
Who else would be a part of that new management team?
Well, I think you would have to look at Putin. I think certainly you have to look at Le Pen because they're all basically concocting their campaigns thus far. And by the way, not surprisingly, speaking of forecast, now it's looking more and more like Le Pen is going to win, and I think we're going to start to see markets react to that.
And what happens? What will the markets do?
Honestly, at this point, I think the markets only have one way to go. Up, really. And we forecasted that from 2013, 2014. I'd like to actually mention something about that a little later on. But in terms of the new management team, as we like to call it, they're all playing from the same playbook. It's that populist, nationalist type rhetoric. And the gentleman that you had on before I came on the show, Control, which is a pretty cool nom de plume, I might add, very Tom Clancy. But he confirmed in his analysis and what he was saying, probably about 85% of the last 3 weeks' worth of research we've been done, or that we have done, as I should say, as it pertains to, you and I had the conversation, obviously not on the radio, but regarding civil unrest and things along those lines. He confirmed about 85 to 90, I'm going to call it 90% of what we've been seeing regarding, you said, when the weather gets warmer, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty much what we've been seeing. And isn't it coincidental that Trump is rallying his quote-unquote troops, right before, the weather gets warmer as well with the big rallies? I mean, he just won the election. What's with the rallies? Okay? So that's going to happen. That's called an inevitable. All right? Your extreme left and your extreme right, something that I've come to call, and again, it's going to sound horrifyingly arrogant to say, but it's two equally obsolete sides of a very obsolete equation, political paradigm, if you will. Okay? So as far as the new management team goes, look for, O'Leary, Kevin O'Leary up in Canada, okay, who's going to run on a kind of a nationalist, capitalist, populist platform. Le Pen is another. I would go so far as to say Duarte in the Philippines. They're very solutions oriented. It's not a new recipe. I mean, you can go back through history and see it used before, but it's certainly a new version of that recipe. And I mean, look how Trump won. He won on nationalism, capitalism, and populism, but heavy on the populism. But America, as I've often said, and that's, again, with the collective sentiment engine that we have, you just elected an independent candidate that used the GOP as a fundraising machine. That's all you did. You didn't elect a Republican. It's a new version, I guess, if you want to call it, of conservatism. And it's certainly more towards the center. And that's you and I had the conversation recently. You're saying that there's a sudden uptrend or upsurge in conservatism or conservative values on college campuses. And I said that could be directly related to, or that is, I should say, directly related to Trump's more moderate approach to conservatism as opposed to the far right. And that's just kind of the natural catalyst that we're seeing, or I should say the natural effect of, you mentioned earlier, speed of information. I said, I don't know how to put this any other way. It's just the availability of information makes it harder to keep a secret now, makes it almost impossible. So the availability of that information certainly has a hand in shaping what's going on now as far as who's getting elected and why.
What does your system pick up, Nick, as far as the future of this populism movement? I mean, is this something that is going to continue to grow, exponentially grow? Is this something that will slowly perk along? Or is this something that's kind of like a, if you will, a geopolitical fad that will burn itself out in 2 to 3 years?
What I can say to that is yes. And it's probably the most sarcastic answer I'm ever going to give you on your show. The answer to that is yes. First, I mean, where we're at now geopolitically, okay, we have a lake of gasoline, okay? And the question is it going to be, is the match going to hit the lake of gasoline and it all goes up at once, or is it going to be like a diesel fire that's going to be a slow burn? Either way, it's going to, there's going to be that inevitable chaos, okay? And I've said now, the more you put these, and again, I'm not going to pretend to have the pedigree that anybody else on this show has as far as an intelligence community background, but the gentleman that was on earlier, Control, mentioned it. Okay, you have this extreme left and you have this extreme right. It's a matter of time, okay, before those two groups start to interact. And what you're seeing is kind of, an osmosis on the left where you're seeing, and I've said this years ago that this was going to happen, all these kind of far-left causes are all starting to blur together into this one kind of quasi-socialist, pseudo-Boxer rebellion kind of thing, right? And then you have on the other side, the far right, you have kind of a mishmash of issues that are over there, free speech, and, Second Amendment, and they're all kind of mishmashing together as well. So basically the way I look at it is that in terms of political paradigm in the United States, we are one Lexington and Concord moment away from, major chaos. All right. Now, that's one way it can go. Is you have a galvanizing catalyst event, a name, an event, something that it's, rally behind. I mean, you've seen the left do it before with, stuff like the Trayvon Martin and stuff like that, where there's an image, there's something iconic there for them to rally around. It's a matter of time before something on either side happens where that becomes the rally cry. Now, you've kind of gone from a fad, if you will, or a political paradigm fad, to now you've got something a little bit more serious on your hands. Okay, and that's what we're seeing is the divisiveness in society. We use numerical variables to quantify sentiment. I won't get into exactly how the nuts and bolts of what we do work, but in terms of a geopolitical paradigm, as that divide gets wider on either side, we're seeing another interesting phenomenon too, which is that there's a central kind of had enough of it on both sides voter base, of which many are Trump voters, and some are even disillusioned Bernie voters, that they're kind of looking from the middle out to both sides. We call it the inversion of the bell curve. Okay, where you have these two extremes, and they represent, the standard deviation. They represent the largest portion of the bell curve. And natural progression is that you're looking at both sides, or I should say there's a central voter group, there's a central ideology group that's looking at both sides of the equation going, no, neither one of you have it right. And that's what's kind of happening. I call it's the obsolescence of the political paradigm. So that's what we're kind of seeing there. So in terms of forward-looking information, yeah, I mean, there's going to be that chaos. Be that, call it the American Spring, if it's fueled by social media, don't really care. But what I can tell you that it's going to do is, getting back to something you mentioned earlier, is one of the sectors have been recommending that a lot of our subscribers, our readers, our customers really, seriously consider for investment is robotic and automated robotic policing components, because that's only going to accelerate that trend.
And one of the other entities that you've looked at have been the precious metals, correct?
Of course.
And what's your read there from your modeling?
Well, my read there so far is every time I come on your show, gold is in a fairly sustained uptrend. This is the third time it's happened now.
Right.
Not quite 1,300, but trending higher. And again, I mean, we look at the precious metals now as, and this is what I wanted to mention earlier. We have a customer that I spoke to that I've been working with, a heck of a nice guy. And, he listened to some other, if you want to call them gurus, or he calls them the doomsday, forecasters on such and such a date, this is going to happen, and it's all going to come apart, it's going to be the Shemitah, whatever the case may be. And the next year, it's the same story, same song, different verse. And I sent him some research from years ago. I almost didn't send it to him because I didn't want him to see it. Because, just for the simple fact that I was like, well, if you subscribed to our stuff, you might have been in a little bit different position. And it had to do with the capital markets. Mm-hmm. We forecasted Dow 28,000 years ago, and predicated upon a number of variables: inflation, consumer confidence, continued financialization, not industrialization. So he saw that and he went, how did you know that? And I go, well, you have to understand, before the implosion, there's going to be the get what you can get while you can get it period. Mm-hmm. That's the time for metals investors now to kind of realize and take a look at the BRICS nations and take a look at, nations that are associated with the AIIP, and even in some case, states. State of Texas, I mean, they're recalling their physical supply. They want to repatriate their gold. So based upon what we've seen, the inevitability and the consolidation of currency predicated upon the speed of information and the speed of business around the world, it's not an if, it's a when. And I've used this analogy many times, which is, if you got me to sit down in a room with every single world leader, there's not a lot I can get them to agree on.
Right.
Okay? But one thing I can do, and I'm used to talk about a sales technique, is they say get the head nodding up and down. Get everybody at least nodding yes in the room because they're more pliable that way. The one thing I could probably get every single world leader to agree on, at the very least, is that gold is money. In the words of J.P. Morgan Sr., silver is money. Everything else is credit. So if I was going to start somewhere, after a massive implosion, be that a complete or partial implosion of fiat currency or a complete or partial implosion of something along the lines of the Anglo-Western banking system, okay, the first place I'm going to start is, all right, guys, can we all universally agree that gold is for really real money? Yes? Okay, good. Well, then let's work from there. So that's an inevitability. We're calling that within a 5 to 7 year inevitability.
And in fact, Nick, it feels as though the folks that have been manipulating the prices of gold and silver have lost control of the system they once had. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. And I will tell you from a linguistics perspective that we're starting to see, even at the retail level, more and more people starting to wake up. And it's not just the fringe anymore. It's not the stackers, the gold bugs, and those kind of guys. It's more and more people are starting to wake up and realize the fact that the new system is going to be gold and silver based. Just deal with it. Okay? It goes back to exactly what I said, which is gold and silver as money is probably about the only thing that every nation on this planet can agree on. That might be it right there. Okay, so as far as the precious metals sector goes, yeah, that sustained uptrend it's going to keep going because now you see the attempted manipulation. We saw it the last 2 weeks that you and I have spoken occasionally offline, off the radio. And every time you see one of those dips or those smackdowns as they call them, there's just an instantaneous response to it.
Yeah.
So the days of the manipulation without penalty and without punishment are over. And as I so often say, it's for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction or consequence. And I think that's what we're starting to see now.
Nick, how can folks follow you?
evolutionconsulting.world. Do go there. We have our monthly and our weekly publications, Switch and Signal and Wirehouse. And we also have our Grant Street Notes Precious Metals Guide available now. We're a big push this week. We got to get the last of the 2 GSN guides out there, but we've gotten great results and great reviews, I should say, on the Grant Street Notes Guide, so we're pretty excited about those. Do go to evolutionconsulting.world, have a look around. Do feel free to contact us also.
Nick, I'd like to thank you for everything you do 24/7 to enhance the financial and economic freedom of every person worldwide. evolutionconsulting.world. Best money you'll spend on those reports.